Alexa, what time is it? can relate to your kind. Whoa. Well, good morning. Good morning and happy Sunday to you. It is 4th of July weekend. I hope you're having a good time celebrating the 4th of July. We're at the 3rd of July, but I guess we're going to start celebrating it today. So, let me get my life together here. There we go. Welcome to Sunday School. I am your teacher for today, Alonzo Richard Fleming Jr., and I welcome you to Sunday School. You can actually join the class today. You should see a link down there. No, it didn't show up, I suppose. But if I think I shared the link, I'm going to invite you to Sunday School. I'm going to put it in the chat box so where you can join the class. Let's see. Where is it? Show. There we go. If you see that link streaming along the bottom there, that is the StreamYard link. You can actually join the class. You can actually ask questions, but you got to authenticate. You got to sign in through either your Facebook page or your YouTube page. But you can participate in the Sunday School today. Let's see here. I want to put it to where I can lay it out here. So if you want to come in, just look at that. See that link down there? I don't know if you can click on it or not. I'm not going to try it because I don't want to mess up what I'm doing here. But if you can't click on it, just type it in, and then you'll be able to come into the Sunday School and ask questions. You can hide your face if you want to. If you don't want me to see you, or if you don't want the rest of the audience to see you, you can hide your face, but you can actually say something. You can ask questions and stuff like that in the Sunday School. We are finishing up. Well, we're not finished yet, but we're working on the unraveling of a great nation from Civil War to Donald Trump. And if you listened last week, there was a video that I was going to play that was going to set you up for this week. So I'm going to play that this week so you will understand where I'm going with this. That talks about the real reason for the Civil War, to kind of set you up for where we're going. And we're talking about, I gave you a definition of what I meant by unraveling, and I'm going to go over that again. But first, I have a few announcements for you. Don't forget to listen and tune in at 7 p.m. on Wednesday. That's 7 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday. We're doing the program Vision for Young Men. And if you listened last week, it was an amazing program. I got so much feedback from that program. Man, I'm really excited about doing this. Vision for Young Men. And this is designed to gather up our young men intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. We're going to address all the situations going on with young men in order to help develop our young men to where they will grow to be good men, good husbands, good fathers, good community leaders, good nation builders. We are developing our young men. Vision for Young Men, Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Central Time. Then I want you to take the time, if you know of a young man, take the time to go to brainstormforlife.com. Brainstorm for life. Spelled out the word brainstorm, the word for, the word life.com, and click on there where it says manhood, mathematics, and science, and sign up for tutoring. See, the problem a lot of times is we wait till our kids get behind. Why do that? Why wait till they get behind in mathematics and science and then start searching for a tutor? Teach them how to be on time and how to address issues in anticipation. This is what the masculine mind does. It anticipates things. And if your young men are not prepared to anticipate and understand how to sidestep, avoid, or solve the problem or address it if it blindsides them, then, we'll continue to crank out undesirable minds. Vision for Young Men on Wednesday, brainstormforlife.com. Sign them up for tutoring. When school starts, we're hitting the ground running. And I'm here to tell you, when I finish showing your child, and when some of my other teachers finish showing your child how to reason mathematically, how to reason scientifically, how to reason spiritually, you're going to have a man on your hands. Sign him up. Brainstormforlife.com. That's the tutoring service. We're going to tutor in mathematics, all levels, engineering courses, all levels. If they're in college and need help with some of the engineering courses, statics, dynamics, linear algebra, differential equations, whatever we need, whatever they need, if they're studying chemistry or medicine or engineering or science or biology, this is what we need. This is why we're belly aching about this. Oh, I don't want to get into that. Let me just sign them up. Just sign them up. Okay? Make a move, an independent move. And then the last thing I want to, a couple more things. Ministers. If you are a minister, an evangelist, a teacher, a preacher, or a person who wants to start a ministry, it's time for you to come out of the closet. It's time for you to step up. Now, I'm a little disingenuous when I say here, because it took me a long time to just decide, man, you got to do this. You got to do it. I really had a hard time, but I'm calling on you. Do what's in your heart to do. It is time to do it. It is time out for procrastination, for playing around, for maybe I will, maybe I won't. We have a nation to save. It's time. You don't have to be authorized by no organization, no preacher, no church, because the God authorized you, and that is enough. And who he authorized, he put the word in their mouth, and it's designed for the minds who are here ready to listen to you. Get busy and do it. Or, like I said in the Shawshank Redemption, the way I see it, we can either get to living or get to dying. If you're a minister, evangelist, preacher, teacher, I know that God has been talking to you. He shut the rest of them down so that you can hear. It's time now. And the spirit that was in them is now set down so that you can be heard. If you don't believe me, take the chance and do it. I'm not going to keep you too much longer. Now, one other thing I want you to do. If you are a minister, an evangelist, a teacher, a preacher, a district elder, whatever you call yourself, remember, you do not have to get certified, authorized, licensed. You have been licensed, certified. Pick up A Course in Miracles. This is the practice book. This is the manual that will help you implement the teachings of Jesus. It gives you practice, daily practice on the power of love, the power of forgiveness, the power of insight, the power of listening to the Spirit in order to guide your thinking and guide your destiny. This is the book right here. It's for practice. It's not going to replace the Bible. I know you all are, we know where your head is. It's practice. And that's all it is. If I gave you practice and somebody told you who you respected to do a certain thing, and I gave you the way to do the thing, the daily practice on how to develop your mind, that's what A Course in Miracles does. It's mind training in forgiveness and love and following Holy Spirit. Pick it up if you are a preacher, teacher, minister, bishop, district elder for this day and time. I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's your day. It's your day now. Seize the day. I can stop now. So I guess that's all of the announcements. A Course in Miracles. We're going to go more and more into A Course in Miracles in our studies. So let me get started, starting with A Course in Miracles. And I'm still going to use the Bible. I'm still going to use the Quran. I'm still going to use A Course in Miracles. I'm still going to use the Metanoia where it's appropriate to use. Because like Malcolm X said, baby, he didn't say baby. I said baby. He said, they don't discriminate against you because you're a Muslim. They discriminate against you because you're black. They don't kill you because you're a Christian. They kill you because you're black. They don't hate you because you're an atheist. They hate you because you're black. So if your religion has not had the power to reform and develop a people with strength and character and protection from God, then you need to put it in the closet anyway. So I'm going to use what works. And that's where we're going to start with our lecture for the day. And again, I'm not going to keep you long. I know you want to get out there and barbecue and all that kind of stuff, some of you. So we're just going to hit it and boom, get out of here. We're talking about the unraveling of a great nation. And I want to start off with giving you the axiom, the philosophy, the guiding principle of our thinking, so you won't get sidetracked as I talk about events, as I share with you his history. And I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that God is one. And when I speak of God, I'm not talking about some God up in the sky. I'm not talking about some entity sitting off separate from everything else. I'm talking about the all in all, which in the book of Acts it pointed out that he is all. He's in all. He doesn't dwell in tents made by hands, tents or buildings made by hands. He's not in your church. He's not in your mosque, but he is in your church and he is in your mosque. She is in your church and she is in your mosque. God is all in all. It is not an individual sitting off somewhere, looking down and writing down all the stuff you've been doing all your life and got these scales. Oh, I'm here to tell you, baby, you've been hoodwinked. You've been bamboozled, if that's what you got. You've been shot in the mind. And it's time to relinquish it. So we start off here. Yeah, I'm talking tough. This is what the Course in Miracles says. And see, I was talking to a friend last night and we were sharing, and I was sharing about how that in history, in your history of biblical history, they did not kill the prophets because they talked nice like boss. I ain't nice like boss. They talked and spoke a certain energy in a certain way because they had to move you. They had to move you. And so the energy that some came with was a movement energy. And then after you were in motion, because it takes a strength, according to Isaac Newton's law of motion, it takes more force in the initial push to get movement than it does to keep it going. Once you get a thing moving, you don't have to touch it again. unless there is an opposing force coming against it. Then you still have to move it. But once you get a thing moving, you have momentum going with it. So the prophets needed to get you to move. So they came with the strength of God. Move. So this is the strength that I'm coming in. This is why you hear that voice. This is why you hear that energy coming out of me. But there are some of you who are now going to patch them up. But listen to A Course in Miracles. What it says. This is the axiom. This is the guiding truth that has to be recognized in order to move through this, what we're talking about as we go through history, because you're going to have emotional responses, some of you. You're going to get angry, some of you. You're going to get mad and shut it down, some of you. But you need a guiding principle. So here it is. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Nothing real can be threatened. If it's real, it can't be taken. And I'll go back into this piece when we talk about inalienable rights in a minute. Nothing unreal exists. If it's not real, if God didn't create it, it doesn't exist. Even though you might think it exists. Nothing unreal exists. And in this axiom, in this principle, and in this knowledge is the peace of God. This is how A Course in Miracles begins. It makes a fundamental distinction between the real and the unreal, between knowledge and perception. Knowledge is truth under one law, the law of love or God. Truth is unalterable, eternal, and unambiguous. It can be unrecognized, but it cannot be changed. It applies to everything that God created, and only what God created is real. Now, listen to this. I'm going to read a little bit more of this so that you can pick up some more of this to understand this guiding principle that we're talking about. Okay, I think I lost my page there. Right. Now, listen to this. Forgiveness is the Holy Spirit's great learning aid in bringing this thought reversal, because we have to have a thought reversal, because we have been born in the idea of sin and shaped, our minds have been shaped to perceive this idea of sin as being real. But if God didn't create it, if God didn't create sin, remember, if nothing unreal exists, but our minds have been shaped in it. We were born in these bodies into a world that taught you this idea of the reality of sin and the unreality of God, because both of them can't be true. If sin is real, then God is not. If God is real, then sin is not. So this thought reversal is what the Holy Spirit brings in the course. It's a course in thought reversal, making God a reality in your mind. And as a result of God being the reality in your mind, the idea of sin and sickness and death becomes unreal, because they both cannot exist at the same time. So the world we see merely reflects our own internal frame of reference. Where are you? What are you referencing from? Where do you start? Where is the starting place? The dominant ideas, wishes, and emotions in our minds, projection, makes perception. We look inside first, decide the kind of world we want to see, and then project that world outside, making it the truth as we see it. Now, let me show you how this works. Let me show you how this works in real life. Now, you don't know this because you may or may not, you may know it, but you may or may not have thought about it. But you know? Well, let me show you how it dawned on me one day. One day I was listening to Hillary Clinton talk, and she was talking about, I think it was this young man who had gotten killed that was with the Skittles. And so she made the statement that if this was a white young man, he would not have been killed. He would have been given the benefit of the doubt. Now she listed as a black audience, and the audience went up in a roar. The black audience started clapping to the truth of what she was saying. What they didn't understand is this language that's being placed in your mind, that there is a superiority to this, and you clap for it. I know you're thinking she was just telling the truth, but you don't understand the psychological impact of consistently and continually reinforcing the idea of white supremacy in your mind, and you clap because of it. And then you start talking about white privilege. You start talking about white supremacy as though it's real. If you let that thought go, then you will see whether or not it's a reality. If you don't hold that thought in your mind, but allow it to sit there, you will see whether or not it's a reality. You don't know whether or not it's a such thing as white supremacy, because you have never allowed it in your own thinking. You have never made it make the case in your mind. The thought, that is, has never made the case. You hold it and presume that it is true without testing it. So A Course in Miracles acknowledges the fact that you look inside, and inside your mind is all these ideas that you have been born in. You look inside, you decide the world is true, and then you project that decision onto the chalkboard of the world. And you have the experiences as a result of that projection. I don't know if I'm making sense to you, but I got to speak it. I got to speak it. Now, listen. Course in Miracles, in the 5th chapter, it's under the chapter 4, rather, in the 5th section, it talks about the ego, the body illusion. Now, I like to put the word devil in place of the ego because they're the same. They use the same, it's the same. It's just a different word for the same thing. Listen to this. All things work together for good. There are no exceptions except in the ego's or the devil's judgment. The ego exerts maximal vigilance about what it permits into your awareness. And this is not the way a balanced mind holds together. The ego is thrown further off balance because it keeps its primary motivation from your awareness and raises control rather than sanity to predominance. In other words, it has to control your thinking rather than bring sanity to your thinking, because once you have sanity, you think with the thoughts of God. Sane thinking. You don't go for the hocus pocus okie dokies anymore. The ego has every reason to do this according to the thought system which gave rise to it and which it serves. Sane judgment would inevitably judge against the devil and must be obliterated by the ego in the interest of its self-preservation. In other words, if you had sane judgment, it would obliterate the idea of a devil, the idea of sin, the idea of sickness, the idea of the ego, all these ideas that impose themselves on your misery would be obliterated if you had sane thinking. A major source of the ego's off-balance state is its lack of discrimination between the body and the thoughts of God. Thoughts of God are unacceptable to the ego because they clearly point to the non-existence of the devil itself. The thoughts of God clearly point. Let me tell you, brothers and sisters, if you took on the thoughts of God, baby, like as the lightning goes from the east even unto the west, so is the thoughts of God will cover your mind, and you won't have room in your thinking for no devil to exist, for no sin to exist, for no ego to exist. And what would the world look like when your thoughts do not have that in their head? What would the world look like if we obliterated the very thought? Listen. The ego, therefore, either distorts the thoughts of God, the thinking of God, or refuse to accept them. It cannot, however, make them cease to be. It therefore tries to conceal not only unacceptable body impulses, but also the thoughts of God, because both are threatening to it. Being concerned primarily with its own preservation in the face of threat, the ego perceives them as the same. By perceiving them as the same, the ego attempts to save itself from being swept away, as it would surely be in the presence of knowledge. Any thought system that confuses God and the body must be insane. I don't care what you think about it. If your thought system, your religion, your theology confuses the body with God or the thoughts of God, it's insane. Now, let me go to our lesson a little bit further here and try to, Angela, do you have something you want to say? Let me see. Okay. All right. Let me go further into our lesson here. And let's see here. Share. Give me a second here. All right. Big idea. Share. You know this was working when I did this before. So give me a second. Slides. Google Slides. Yeah, there it is. I wasn't supposed to do that. Okay. Oh, I know what I did. Okay, here we go. Right. All right. Now, the unraveling of a great nation from Civil War to Donald Trump is and we talked about last week. Let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. We read out of A Course in Miracles. By the way, those of you who have started studying The Course in Miracles but got a little discouraged and put it down, pick it back up. I know it's tough because you haven't had any mental discipline. Even if it is really solved already, you will still have the problem because you will not recognize that it has been solved. That's what I'm talking about when I say white supremacy and all this kind of stuff that we are all trapped in. This is the situation of the world. The problem of separation, which is really the only problem, has already been solved. Yet the solution is not recognized because the problem is not recognized. So let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. If you set the problem up, ladies and gentlemen, you set the parameters up by which it can be solved. And if your parameters do not include the solution to the problem, it won't be solved. So let me move forward here. Now, here we go. We're talking about the unraveling of a great nation. And we talked about last week how that unraveling can have good connotations as well as connotations that are undesirable. But it means to undo what was done. And when you talk about a nation, it's primarily talking about its money, its infrastructure, its religious, and its culture. You see, when you're talking about that, a great nation. In the last 500 years, you've had 3 or 4 great nations. You had Britain, you had the United States, and you had the Portuguese, and they comprised they had power over the money, over the currency, over export, over the planetary cultural positions, and military superiority. And each one of them has risen and fallen. And there's 2 particular places in history where great nations, they're more dangerous at these 2 places than any time in history. They are most dangerous in the beginning and the end, because you have a world that is flipping over, that is going out, that is done. So at the end, you will start noticing 3 things occurring across the planet. You will start noticing the currency debasement, in terms of they will be debasing their money, the value of their money, and it turns out in inflation and stuff like that. You will see massive internal strife going on. This is going on at the same time, fighting internally, and you will see emerging powers begin to challenge the supremacy of the predominant nation. You will see them happening at the same time. Now, I recommended to you all on many occasions Ray Dalio's book, Principles for Dealing with a Changing World Order. And he talks about this in great detail. I even gave you the video to watch that outlines the book, so it will make the book easier to digest. If you have a student, by the way, in advanced economics, this book is a must, because his economics courses, unless it's teaching the fact that we are in the midst of a changing world order and the principles necessary to employ, his economics course will be nothing but a grade that he gets for regurgitating outdated information. So I want to zero in on that second part of the 3 things that you notice when a country, a nation is in decline. And that is the internal strife, the massive internal strife that can sometimes and most times result in civil war. And you've been hearing this vibration coming from the Trumpers. They're speaking in these terms. So I'll start off with the book of Galatians, chapter 5, so you can understand that the principle that occurs at this particular juncture in you get an education today. You might as well get your pen and pad out. This is what occurs at this particular juncture. If you bite and devour one another, be warned, take heed that you be not consumed one of another. This I say then, walk in the spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust or the desires of the flesh. Listen, for the flesh desires, or it has desires against the spirit, and the spirit lusts or has desires that are against the flesh. And these 2 are contrary one to the other, so you cannot do the things that you would. So let me unpack that before I move forward very quickly here. The flesh, what it means, walk in the spirit rather than the flesh, it simply means, ladies and gentlemen, that your higher thinking, your God level thinking, you start your presumptions of life and what life is all about from the God level of thought. You do not make the flesh a cause. I did this because he did that. That's making the flesh a cause. That's making the material world, which is volatile and ever changing, no rules, or follows the rules of chaos, ever changing. You are trying to make the volatile the ever-changing, the illusion of reality, the cause for your reality. So it says, walk in the Spirit. It simply means God is in you. You do not have to go to church to get him. You don't have to go to the mosque to get him. You don't have to go to the synagogue to get him. You must go inward. And it is the only place you go to discover the truth of God. God is in you. And if your book does not point you to yourself where God dwells, then you are following a book that's getting you and teaching you how to walk in the flesh. But you are to walk in the Spirit, and you won't fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh has desires that's against the Spirit, and the Spirit has desires that's against the flesh. So you might say, well, if I don't trust myself, I'm a sinner. How am I going to do this? I can't do that. To walk in the Spirit, ladies and gentlemen, Jesus said in the Bible, because the preachers was always coming against him. Let me put this back up here. There we go. The preachers was always coming against Jesus. And they came to him because he was always talking about this kingdom of heaven. And they came to him and said, well, where's this heaven? Because you know they was the ones always dogging him out. They was the ones, because see, they had the structure already in place. They had the world already in place. And they understood that what he spoke to was coming against their world. See, the Spirit has a tone that annihilates the flesh, or the presumption that the flesh is reality. You can't depend on the flesh as being reality. Your body as being reality. Your body follows your mind. It does what your mind says to do, unless you have exercised yourself of bringing your mind into your body. And the body, with all of its volatility, it has no discipline. And so you go this way and think it's true, and go that way and think it's true. This is what it means when Willie Lynch said we got to bring them down to the level of the beast. Food, having sex, and fighting. The volatility of the flesh just simply means that your mind is no longer in your brain, but in your body. And you follow the impulses of the body as reality. And as Willie Lynch said, when we do this, what will happen, we will keep them orbiting in a multiplicity of illusions. So you're running over here because of voting rights today. Oh, you're running over there because this has happened. And you're running over here. And every time you go one place, the other thing that you thought you solved is right back there. So as Carter G. Woodson says, that you will find yourself in the end no further ahead than you were in the beginning. Is that not the case? Oh, yeah, we got a Supreme Court justice with blackface. But we've been had a Supreme Court justice in blackface. Let me continue with this thing so we can get through here. I'm trying to help you to understand, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. I'm going to get this right, y'all. I'm going to get it right. Because I want to be able to switch easily between these slides. There we go. Make that. Now let's continue with this. So here is the Congress in July 4th, 1776, and this is what the 4th of July is all about. It is not about barbecue. It is not about dancing and picnics. It is about this right here. The unanimous declaration of the 13 states, United States of America. Notice the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. The word of is a mathematical term. Let me continue and I'll come back to that. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes for which impel them up your rear end, impel you to the separation. Because you have concern about what your brother thinks about you, and if you have lost concern about what your brother thinks about you, then you are not functioning under the laws of nature and nature's God, because that's part of it. So let's continue. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Now, remember, I said that the truth of God is in the self. It is within you. Jesus said, don't look no place else, for the kingdom of heaven is within you. When the preachers came to him and asked him, well, where is this kingdom? He said, many gonna come and do this and tell you to go here and go there. Don't do this. For behold, or look, the kingdom of heaven is within you. This is what the one that y'all call the master said. He said, don't look any place else for the kingdom of heaven except within yourself. So here the Declaration of Independence, the principles upon which this country was founded, and it was founded on these principles, even if they didn't fully adhere to them. You cannot disregard the law just because somebody said the law and they don't obey it. That just simply makes them a hypocrite. It doesn't change the proof and power of the law. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And I know they put the word men in there, but we're going to use this in terms of men and women, male and female. Okay, so we won't get all stumbled up over that. We hold these truths to be self-evident inside yourself, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these unalienable rights, a life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now listen, they're self-evident. You can't find it by going to college. You can't find it by going to church. You can't find it by going to the mosque. You can't find it by going to the temple, synagogue, or whatever your particular persuasion is, except the inside of the self. I remember my son thought he was an atheist, and he was going around in school talking about, I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. And different ones was coming to me and say, Dr. Fleming, why are you not teaching Taurus that he's not an atheist? I said, if God can't show him his own reality, if God can't teach him, then who am I? And maybe I ought to look at his philosophy. If I got to teach him what God's supposed to be teaching him about himself, what if I don't know and I'm teaching him something that's wrong? I said, we'll let God do the work. So I was inspired to just give him one question. I said, son, how do you explain yourself? You don't have to answer me, but here's the question, because I knew he was a scientific thinker. That's the way we raised him. So I said, how do you explain yourself? I didn't worry about how he interpreted the question, didn't have any more discussion about it. I just simply asked him, how do you explain yourself? And a few years, I suppose, it was maybe about a year and a half or so that transpired. He went off to college and started getting with these Christian folk. And before I knew it, Daddy, I want to marry a Christian woman. I say, why is that? He ain't never say I'm a Christian. He said, I want to marry a Christian woman. Why is that? Well, they're wholesome. They don't try to get us to have sex, and they not this, that, and the other. He used all the language that he thought was wholesome language. And he said he's going to marry one and he's going to remain a virgin until he marries. I never said anything to him about God is real. I let him say it to me. So listen, that's where you got to look. I let God tell him. about himself. Yes, it came through interaction with human beings, but it caused him to look inward. And then later on, we had to straighten out some other things, but they were not the reality of God, the reality of the creator, the reality of the all. Men are created equal, meaning you cannot seek equality, because if you seek equality from another man, then you are suggesting that that man is your superior by default, and that he has the power to make you equal to himself, which is impossible. It's mathematically impossible. Because if he makes you equal, then he has the power to make you unequal, thereby rendering you unequal by nature. No man can make you equal to himself. You are equal because you were created by God, and he created all men equal. But this is a truth that you have to go inside to discover. And we start from that. Now listen. They are endowed, all men are endowed by their creator with certain, meaning not certain ones, you got this one and not that one. We got certainty. Certain means sure. They are sure. You are created with sure, unalienable rights. It doesn't matter your circumstance. You look inward, you will see by nature the surety of these rights that no man can take and no man can give. And this unravels the mystery in the book of Revelation when he talks about, behold, I open a door which no man can shut, and I close a door which no man can open. These unalienable rights are certain in that they are sure. And that among these unalienable rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are only three of the rights that you have that came from your creator, that cannot be given to you by another man, nor taken from you by another man. And these are only three of them. You can only discover what they are by looking inward. Now, here we go. I did this the other day, and I'm not going to beat this one down. This is the story right here in Matthew 13 about this parable of the wheats and the tares. And we talked about how this good man planted this field with wheat, and then went to sleep. They were put to sleep. And then when they woke up while they were asleep, an enemy came in and planted tares or weeds. They looked just like the wheat. And then the enemy left. He didn't even have to stay because he knew that they would grow. And you wouldn't be able to tell the difference while they were young because they looked so much alike. So we're talking about a nation being unraveled, and we talked about it being planted in 1776. And there are all these things going on, and the wheat and the tares, the United States of America is planted. Somebody planted America in the United States. So keeping in line with this. Now, if you think, what this got to do with the scripture? Brother, I'm here to tell you that if God don't cover your entirety life, get you another God. He got to cover all aspects of living, or else there's lack. So this nation was planted, and in this nation was planted wheat and tares. And when it was young, you couldn't see the difference between the two. You thought you could because they woke up and they thought they could. Wait a minute, didn't you plant wheat? And we see some tares among them. We're going to pull them up. He said, no, you can't pull them up right now, because you can't really tell the difference. Yeah, you know they're there, but you can't really tell the difference. So somebody asked me, are we going to discuss the of portion of this? Let me go back real quick and talk to you about that, where it says, where was it? Let me just go back and hit that. The United States of America. Now, of is a mathematical term that means part of. It's a mathematical term. And depending on the operation, the mathematical operation that you are doing, you could either have a multiplication of it or a division of it. It could be talking about division or multiplication. So I'm suggesting to you that the of in the United States is the ego part of the United States, planted with the United States. That there is a different country. There's a different presumption in the America. And we keep calling ourselves Americans. But I'm here to share with you that there is a difference in these two countries as the wheat and the tares. The United States encompasses all of humanity. It is the only country on planet Earth that contains the entirety of planet Earth. All the peoples of the earth are gathered in the United States. And America don't like it. America is a white man's nation. The United States is the nation that comes as the result of this coming after what it says here in the course of human existence. Let me see. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. This is the United States. Let me continue, because I know you ain't bought that yet. But yeah, I'm bringing an idea that you ain't thought about, but there are those who understand this. They just haven't spoke to it. So it's going back to the wheats and the tares. So you saw the wheat and the tares in the early part of the nation, and you saw, we can pull this out and pull that out, because they had a 3/5 compromise in which they made the black man 3/5 of a human being. No, they racist. No, see, you would have pulled out the wheat along with the tares had you done that in the early stages. You wouldn't have known which one to pull and which one to leave. Yeah, you recognize the wheat, you recognize the tares, but you can't quite figure it out. So he says, let them grow together. He said, we're going to pull them up first. He said, no, lest while you gather up the tares, because they want to pull the tares up, you root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers. Let me go back to 29, verse 29 here. He said, if you do it the way you want to do it, because you don't know what I know, says the Quran. You know not what I know. He's talking about putting a mischief maker in the earth. And the angels, this is in the Quran, and the angel said to him, well, wait a minute, you're going to put somebody that's going to cause division, and you're going to put somebody in the earth that's going to cause bloodshed, and you're going to put somebody in the earth that's going to cause misery for humanity? He said, you know what I know. You don't know what I know. See, this is the angels in this scripture saying this, but because you don't have any interpretive, is that a word? Because if it's not, I just made it up. You don't have any interpretive tool to understand what's being talked about. So he says, if you pull them up like you want to do it, you're going to pull the wheat with them. Let them both grow together until the harvest. And in the times of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares. That's the rapture that they talk about. The tares are gathered first, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather you the wheat into my barns. Now, let me hit that real quick, because you want to think it's talking about people. It is talking about thoughts. It is talking about the mind and the ego in the mind wrestling with the spirit to take over the mind and cause you to walk in the flesh rather than walking in the spirit. It is not talking about people. However, there are those who will insist on holding that mind. And as a result of holding that mind of the ego, of the tares, then they will experience that the ego and the tares will bring about. But in the end, they will come to terms with the fact that the tares or the ego or the devil has no use for them. So this nation called America went to war because they saw that if they kept with what they were doing, they would be annihilated. So now we're going to go to a short video. It's about 2 minutes long, and it's going to show you what I mean when I say the United States and America are two different nations. So let's do this. See if I can get this pulled off. Okay, I didn't do it last week, and hold on, give me a second here. It's supposed to be a video that plays. Okay. Let's see. Okay, it is not coming up either. Well, I'm just going to have to do it. I'm just going to have to do it again next week. That nabbit. This was supposed to be a video to play, and let me see. Because this is important. I got to show you this, guys. I got to show you this, or else it won't make sense. Give me a second. If I don't play this, you won't understand what I'm saying about America and the United States, and so the rest of the lecture won't make sense to you. So I'm going to have to play this. Here it is. Now, let me see if I can do this. Hold on. Give me a second. 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 There it is. Okay, here we go. I'm hoping you can see this.
Between 1860 and 1861, 11 southern states withdrew from the United States and formed the Confederate States of America. They left or seceded in response to the growing movement for the nationwide abolition of slavery. Mississippi said, "Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery." South Carolina cited hostility on the part of the non-slaveholding states to the institution of slavery.
Yeah, this is not working.
Vice President of the Confederacy.
Okay, you're not seeing this, and I know you're not. All right. This was supposed to be this video. I'll make sure I get it the next time because it's not playing. So I'm going to have to do it the next time. The United States. Wait a minute. I'm going to have to stop this video now. Okay. So I've been saying that the United States and America are two different nations. And the reason I say this is because it was the Confederate States, because of they wanted to keep slavery, and they stated in their declarations that their primary objective was to keep the institution of slavery intact. And so they succeeded. It was 11 states. Texas was one of them. They succeeded from the United States, and they called themselves the United States. The United States. That's good. Somebody said they've already downloaded that video. Download that video and watch it. I'm going to post it on my Facebook page. They called themselves the Confederate States of America. And they succeeded from, when you look at their declarations and when you look at their documentations of why they succeeded from the United States, not the United States of America. They succeeded from the United States and called themselves the Confederate States of America. And this video is real good, and I hate that I couldn't get it, but I'll post it on my Facebook page because it's very important for you to see what this was all about, because I have another video that talks about Reconstruction. And let me just go ahead and hit Reconstruction. I might just, I got a few more minutes. So the Confederate States went to war against the United States over the institution of slavery. They wanted to keep slavery intact. And the North wanted to control the economics of the South, because the South was gaining much, much more power than the North as a result of having this powerful labor force. And so they began to see themselves as separate from the United States. And that's what it really was about. It was about economics. It was about power. It had nothing to do with slavery in terms of what the North was trying to do. They used that as a catalyst. They used slavery as a battle cry in order to, try to keep the Union together. Now, in any war, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that goes out the window first is the truth. And you start getting a barrage of propaganda. And so you would think, as a result of your history classes, that the United States or the North went to war to abolish slavery. The United States went to war to keep the Union intact. And then slavery became a battle cry. And after that battle cry, because you had a lot of abolitionists, mainly whites, who were abolitionists in the North and some in the South, some of whom gave their life to end slavery. They saw the contradiction of that the country was engaged in. The contradiction that said all men are created equal, and this is self-evident. So they looked inside themselves. They said, well, wait a minute, you're not treating them as you're treating them like cattle, and we can see clearly that they are men. So there were many, many whites who were against slavery for that reason. John Brown was one of many. Sacrificed two of his sons, himself and two of his sons, at Harper's Ferry, which was the first shots of the Civil War. But listen, the battle cry became that primarily due to the abolitionist movement. And when the Confederate States of America succeeded from the United States, then they needed a justified reason, and slavery was the reason. And that's how the energy came about. So a lot of white men joined the military, even though Lincoln was really doing something else. And by the way, it had a lot to do with money, by the way. It had a lot to do with money and central banks. Lincoln did not want to have a central bank to print your money and cause inflation and put you in slavery, put the entire country in slavery. And so it was a legitimate cry of the abolitionists who were against slavery to recruit whites from the North and many from the South to go to war over slavery. But the real issue had to do with central bankers and money. You don't think that Abraham Lincoln was killed over slavery, do you? Had to do with money. Remember I said when there's a changing world order, what happens? You had other countries funding both sides of this war, of the Civil War. Wars are very expensive. So the North and the South went to war, and over 500,000 died. I forget the exact number. There was somebody who put a text in there saying it was that slavery was money, and that is correct. It was an economic force to be reckoned with, and this is why the North was concerned when they started doing during the Constitutional Convention about the 3/5 compromise. Now that's way before the Civil War, but that was one of the considerations, the representation that the South would have, the power that the South would have with respect to representation. And I can't believe I remember this stuff from school. I just put it in my own words now. But the South would have more power, so that if they were to count the slaves as one person, and that's what the 3/5 compromise was all about. So they went to war, and then after this 4-year Civil War, there was they allowed the blacks to join the North, and they would have you to think, once again, I'm going to unravel some stuff for you. They didn't want blacks to fight because they didn't think the Negroes could fight. They didn't think the Negroes had intelligence to fight. Now, this was the North. I'm here to tell you, it was not about whether or not the Negroes could fight. It was about which way them Negroes would point them guns, as it has been in all the wars that this country has been in. They have ever been concerned about which direction we would point them guns. And it was only until they were 100% sure which direction we would point those guns that we was allowed to fight. And even though we were allowed to fight, we still had some of the worst treatment any human being could endure by the North. Up until this day, I remember I used to tie my grandfather's ties, and he would bring about 50 or so ties down to the table. And we sit down at the dining room table, and I put the tie around my neck and tie it and then loosen it up and take it off and give it to him. So all he had to do was tie the knot. But it was a great opportunity for me to have discussion with my grandfather about different things he experienced in life. I remember this one particular time they were going through this flag burning. Now, my grandfather was a deacon. My maternal grandfather was a deacon in the Church of God in Christ. I had never heard my grandfather cuss before until that day. He fought in World War II, and he was involved in holding the German prisoners. And I said, Granddaddy, what do you think about this flag burning stuff they talking about? And it's the first time I ever heard my grandfather cuss. He said they can take that mother and burn it. I'm standing out there in the rain and snow watching German soldiers, and I got to eat in the rain and snow, and they're up in the barracks being treated like human beings. They're killing us, and they're getting treated like human beings, and we're sitting out here in the rain and snow. They can burn that thing. That was my grandfather. First time in my life I ever heard him cuss. And that's what he chose to cuss over. Now, I have since had an understanding of what that flag means. But going back to what we're talking about, and I promise you guys I'll get this video together and play it next week because it's very important. The Civil War, ladies and gentlemen, was about economic power. And so in Reconstruction, after the Civil War was over, when they was reconstructing the South, when they were rebuilding the South, the abolitionists, the white abolitionists, wanted the South to be rebuilt by wiping out the current governmental structure and instituting a whole new form of government, getting rid of all the Confederates, getting rid of all the Confederate mines, and instituting a new form of government consistent with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. But they had a problem. They wanted to keep white supremacy as they saw it intact because they were tired of war. And so they made this compromise here and sold the black man out again. So they said, listen, we will let y'all stay in power if you admit that you lost the war and if the land barons would ask for a pardon for rebellion against. Now listen, what you got going on now, listen. If you ask for a pardon and admit that you lost the war, we will let you stay intact just the way you are. This was the compromise of Reconstruction. Listen, if you will admit that you were in rebellion against the United States, and if you will ask for a pardon, you Confederate generals, you Confederate politicians, you Confederate people, you Confederate landowners whose land was confiscated during the war, we will give you your land back. We will let you stay intact in power, and all you got to do is cease and desist from coming against the United States. He said, okay. They said, okay. Listen. Pay attention. They said, okay. And so that's when you got all the black codes. There was a hands-off thing from the North. They let the South, except for the abolitionists in the North, the abolitionists were furious. They wanted to wipe out all of them. They said, no, we ain't gonna wipe them out. And then they let the South stay intact. And that's when you had the rise of the Ku Klux Klan and the Daughters of the Revolution and all of these Confederate who went against the United States. They were able to function freely. And that's when you had Ida B. Wells Barnett coming along and documenting all of the lynchings, all of the burnings, all of the killings that they were doing to black people, and all the intimidation and keeping us from voting and keeping us out of economic power for another 100 years. And that's when they started building all of these monuments to the Confederates and the North. When in what God's name do you let a enemy who came against your country build statues commemorating the ones who led the charge against your country? Well said Jesus to the preachers when he said, we wasn't the ones, and we wouldn't have done it if we was back there. We wouldn't have came against them. He said, but you built monuments of those who did come against them, thereby testifying that you are of the same mind. They built monuments to the Confederates, and it's only been in the last few years as the obvious has shown up that there is a brewing of the white supremacist America. And next week, I'm going to hit on Trump and his Make America Great and what that means for this country. Next week, I'm going to show you that it ain't over, ladies and gentlemen. It's not over. And we are going to have to come to terms with the fact that we have a job to do, a mind to take a hold to, in order to, well, without just saying it, survive what is to come. Because it's not going to be easy. America has allowed, or the United States has allowed, the Confederates to regroup, and they're now at your front door. And so now we have to deal with it. And so we're going to deal with Donald Trump. And I promise you, I will have this. I thought I had it today. I thought I had done it today and got these videos right, but I didn't get it right. So listen, join me next week, and let's we'll finish this up. We'll do Donald Trump's Make America Great Again, and I'll have those videos together for you. So listen, don't forget to listen in on Wednesday at 7 p.m. We got another great show lined up for you. We got some people who are going to be talking about relationships and young men. So that's going to be fun. So this is Dr. Fleming signing out on Sunday School, and I'll see you next week. Enjoy your holiday weekend.